I have this microphone, which I'm going to use because I need something to do with my hand. This microphone connects to nothing, so here we are. Welcome. My name is Teresa. This is my cozy corner of the internet where we sit back without pants and chat about fashion, history, and other things. Let's get into it. This video is going to take a deep dive into fashion trends of history, focusing specifically on the Regency period. So let's get into it. Fitzwilliam Darcy. So the Regency period is the era between 1795 and 1837. When you think about the Regency era, the number one association is Jane Austen. Jane Austen novels, the movies adapted from her novels, including our favorite, Pride and Prejudice. And I'm talking about the two versions of Pride and Prejudice that has lived in the Austen aficionado cultural lexicon. The Regency era is perhaps the most popular, written about, romanticized era in historical romance fiction. The Regency era has had a bit of a moment, a bit of a resurgence with the Bridgerton series on Netflix. After years of Jane Austen scholarship, many years of reading Jane Austen, watching all the BBC adaptations, and perhaps memorizing some Pride and Prejudice lines, I have inadvertently earned a bachelor's degree in the Regency period. Fitzwilliam Darcy. Let's chat about what we've been waiting for, the fashion of the Regency period. And when I get excited, my hands automatically do this. I think it's an Italian gesture. Am I flicking you off here? Don't get offended. I'm just excited and I just do this. Women's fashion in the Regency era was characterized by practical, humble, tactful ideals. There was an emphasis on the return to natural forms. It's basically the historical equivalent of the minimalist capsule wardrobe with the neutral color palette. Black, white, beige. You all know what I'm talking about. It was very popular 5 to 6 years ago. Also, it's still popular right now. But in order to understand this new stripped down fashion aesthetic, we have to return to the Regency period's predecessor, the French Revolution. If you're familiar with the Ultimate Fashion History, one of my favorite channels on YouTube, the creator of the UFH, Amanda Halley, would often say, and this is her model, fashion is not an island, it's a response. Taking that into account, the Regency era is a response to the fashion of the French Revolution. So let's take a second deep dive into the French Revolution fashion, and you will find that it is quite the opposite of the stripped down Regency aesthetic. Comparing the two fashion styles, the Regency period did a complete 180 shift in taste. Fashion of the French Revolution consisted of big powdered wigs, opulent embellishments, silk brocade, gold, lace, anything you can think of. It was the age of excess, age of opulence. Aristocrats were not afraid to flex their wealth and status on their material person. In Versailles at the time, aristocrats would live above their means, literally putting themselves into debt so they could live up to the excessive, flamboyant, over-the-top, very expensive dress codes set by Louis XIV, the Sun King. That tradition continued on and on until we reached the French Revolution with Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. We all know what happened to them. They went to the guillotine along with the French aristocracy. That was the vibe that we're trying to avoid. So if you just imagine yourself living in this gilded mansion with all your millionaire or fake millionaire friends, you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, you're decked out in your best designer clothes, which you probably can't afford, probably have to sell a horse for it, just drenched in perfume because, to be honest, you probably stunk. Versailles was dreadfully lacking in bathrooms. The king himself had his private water closet, probably with flush plumbing, one would hope. But the rest of the aristocracy were there to fend for themselves. There was chamber pot, but not enough bathrooms for the amount of courtiers in Versailles. Fun fact, in order not to appear unpolite by excusing yourself during dinner with the king, if you really had to number one or number two, you would not run off through this vast mansion to the bathroom. You would go behind the draperies, do your business in a pile of straw, probably amongst the refuse of your fellow courtiers, and then just pretend nothing happened, pretend nobody's listening to you, and go back to dinner. The unfortunate servants will have to clean up this mess. So that is the vibe that we are trying to avoid in the Regency era. 10, 20 years past, we are hopefully much more refined than that. As you can tell, I think that the French Revolutionary style was cute in a variety of ways, but I have seen some pretty funky makeup. Well, let's just say I think the women's fashion was cute. The men's fashion, I can give or take. I'm not a fan of knee breeches or culottes, and I don't know about hoses and everything, but we'll discuss that right now. In order for us to understand Regency fashion and how it is a reaction in many ways against the French Revolutionary excessive fashion, women's gowns were tightly corseted, the bodices were tight, the boobs were the fabric of most gowns were made of weighty silk and brocade. If I remember my Marie Antoinette costuming, even though it's not historically accurate, and Outlander, I don't know why I said that in a very excited way, but Outlander, they had 3/4 sleeves with some lace flutters about the sleeves. Pantliers or side hoops were very popular at the time, creating a very thin bodice and incredibly flared out skirt silhouette, so wide in some countries, particularly I'm thinking Spain, from that famous illustration. I'll pop that illustration in, where you can't even fit through a door. If you think about the outfits of Marie Antoinette, who is our poster child of the French Revolution, you have the perfect representation of who the Regency people were trying to get away from. Powdered wigs were very popular for both men and women. Huge wigs for women. Once again, I am going to give a mention to Marie Antoinette and her famous... Remember the powdered wig with the ships? I don't know why powdered wigs was such a thing. I'm thinking most people had lice. People in the 18th century, citizens of the 18th century, the aristocracy, the working class had their own problems. I assume everybody was filthy as... So everybody from the aristocracy to the bourgeoisie to the working class down, I presume, was incredibly filthy, but none so filthy than the aristocracy, who had the privilege of dousing themselves with perfume to cover their stench, their lack of bathing. Maybe they did bathe, but maybe it was not a very good bath. Everybody just stunk to high heaven. Lice was rampant. Didn't matter how rich you were. Your bed was made of straw or goose down, which also is dirty in itself. Tell me if you have a goose down pillow or comforter. Tell me if it's dirty or not. Filthy as when your head is infested by lice, you shave it off. If you were rich enough, by God, you purchased the wig. And then you would powder the wig. You would powder the wig because the wig is also a lice magnet. And I guess you just powder. Maybe the powder smelled good. Maybe the powder had like a perfume scent to it. So you're just perfumed and stinking. And I'm so disgusted. Men's fashion. Men's fashion of the French Revolution was characterized by tailored coats, waistcoats, knee breeches. Most of this is very elaborate silk brocades, shoes with big buckles. US fashion at the time was much more stripped down as an early counter-reaction against the excess of the European court. Benjamin Franklin caused quite the stir when he appeared in a French court with his own hair instead of a wig. Men wore their hair long in a queue, which is a fancy way to describe a male ponytail. How do you feel about ponytails in men? If a ponytail is what you want, rock it. The mullet's back. I have mixed feelings about the mullet. Actually, I don't have mixed feelings about the mullet. I hate the mullet, but I'm not going to stop anybody from rocking their mullet and living their best life. Having seen men in mullets in my childhood, it brings me back to a dark place. It's just a place that I would rather not go. So the ponytail in 18th century male hairstyles has definitely led me down a rabbit hole of mullet chatter, which I will have to stop. Sometimes I like to think about the nitty-gritty of what it's like to live back then. I'm especially obsessed with hygiene. A lot of this pomp and circumstance is dressing up what underneath is probably unhygienic. I see a lot of historical movies that are kind of true to life. You see actors in in silk brocade and very white caked on makeup with the beauty mark covering up what is supposed to be syphilis sores, boils, leaking pustules, crusting up on their faces. And you know that the makeup is poisonous, lead-based. Instead of taking it off every night, they would just cake it on, thereby contributing to their failing health. That's what I'm actually grotesquely interested in. So the French Revolution, it's a fancy time, but I can't help but think it is a time when you're putting lipstick on a pig. Pigs are cute, but you know. Naturally, the next generation, the Regency generation, would have a reaction to the pomp and circumstance, the opulent luxe style of the French Revolution. There would be a huge pushback. The over-the-top style fell drastically out of style. Gauche aristocrats were marched to the guillotine. It's no longer the vibe to be flaunting one's wealth. We want to return to a more enlightened, to a classical, elegant time. And now that brings us in to the point of this video, the Regency fashion we have all been waiting for, as seen in various Jane Austen movies, Pride and Prejudice, Emma, Sense and Sensibility, Northanger Abbey. Did you catch that one? I did in 2007, and I can't remember a dang thing about it. So let's describe the characteristics of Regency fashion. For women's fashion of the time, gowns became looser. We went from tighter bodices, cropped bodices, giving way to flowing skirts in the classic empire waist gown silhouette. The fabric went from heavy silks and brocade to a simplified, light-colored, almost sheer muslin. Linen was replaced with cotton for everyday wear. Fabric was usually white for the day. If you had a little bit of money and you had free time to mark up your social calendar and go to a ball, preferably in Nethersfield, you would probably trade your white muslin empire waist gown for darker, richer evening wear colors. Gone were the powdered wigs that you saw on Marie Antoinette's head, and also gone was her head. That really sucked for Marie. Wigs on women were replaced by a more natural hairstyle, a elegant, classical Grecian updo with frontal ringlets. Shoes went from curved high heels to dainty slippers that were as practical as nothing. It was not practical at all, but they were perfect for taking a turn around the drawing room. You might need to put on sturdier shoes when taking a brisk walk in the woods, getting lost in a book, or walking from your house to the neighbor's house 5 miles away. Frontal openings, stomachers are gone, out of vogue. They gave way to back openings with tiny little pearl buttons, reminiscent of wedding dress closures. Fabric was peekaboo, sheer, so that you can see the woman's natural body. It's actually quite scandalous in its simplicity. The cleavage was bountiful. The corsets went from stiff bone corsets to, I don't know why I did right after I said cleavage, but we'll just pretend, just ignore these hand gestures, these perverted hand gestures. I'm a little excited. I kind of want to get up from my seat, pull down a chart, get my laser pointer and start pointing. Corsets, less stiff, less boned, soft bones. Why am I talking about bones? Stiff, bony corsets to equally stiff but not so bony corset. We are talking about the difference between bone in and bone out. Boobs, cleavages became more bountiful and defined, lifted. The girls are lifted up. We have softer corsets, loose flowing gowns, empire waist silhouettes, ringlets, classical updos, natural hair, gladiator sandals, and the bonnet. And this is just my opinion, so don't come at me. In terms of hat choices, we could do a lot better, but I can't think of anything else to style a Regency empire waist ball gown. I don't even think they wore bonnets at night. Strike that. They wore bonnets during the day. At nights, they might have a cloak or a hood, but the bonnet, not a fan. In terms of empire waist dresses, I'm also not a fan. It looks good on models. It looks good on actresses in Jane Austen movies. The empire waist is having a bit of a moment, a resurgence with the cottagecore trends. Everybody is rocking the puff sleeves, the square neckline, uplifted bosoms, soft, flowy, romantical fabrics. I would like to remind you that in 2008, the empire waist silhouette made a comeback, not in dresses, but in blouses. And I fell prey, guys. I fell prey to the empire waist blouse. And that was a time when everybody was layering tank tops under their blouses for modesty's sake. We were a very modest group in 2008. Not only did we layer with a modesty tank inside the blouse, and and it usually came as a V-neck. The colors usually did match, or at least I didn't match my colors. I don't know why. I didn't know color theory. I didn't know color palettes and colors that went together. I just put on whatever I wanted, and I have regrets. The Empire waist looks great on some people, doesn't look good on me. Regrets. Men's fashion of the Regency time swung from silk and stockings to a more austere, stripped down aesthetic. The dress code was simple, dark colors were mandatory. The famous iconic blue tailcoat with brass buttons was definitely a thing. We have the rise of the white muslin shirt, and that gives us leeway to talk about the puffy shirt. Now, guys, gals, I am a fan of the puffy shirt. I direct you to Colin Firth, 1995, at the peak, at the pinnacle of his Fitzwilliam Darcy glory, coming out of his Pemberley Lake from his daily aggressive swim. Can you swim aggressive? Yes, you can swim aggressively. He's distraught. He's upset over Elizabeth Bennet turning him down, turning down his marriage proposal. I can't even speak right now. Guys, I'm getting excited. I need to stand up. I'm getting excited. Woo! He's taken a headfirst dive into his private lake to swim. Ordinarily, I think he would be naked, but come on, this is the BBC. I don't think that the audience at the time could handle it. I don't think I could handle it, but he dove in with his small clothes, with his puffy shirt, and out he rose from the water just as Elizabeth Bennet is visiting with her aunt and uncle, and there they run into each other, and she's like, Mr. Darcy. Oh my god. Of course, I don't think that it would be very proper for a Regency gentleman at the time to go parading around with his thin muslin puffy shirt. I am a fan. I've mentioned this many times. I've beat it like a dead horse, but I love the puffy shirt. The puffy shirt, I'm a fan. Men's fashion of the time also went from knee breeches, the culottes, to tight trousers. Tight, maybe buckskin trousers. Zippers weren't invented at the time, so we have that placket, the fly button placket thing. I don't know why I noticed this in historical costume dramas, but I do. Like, my eyes just go zoom right to the crotch. Those buttons are working overtime. I see gaps, opportunities to take a peek at the family jewels. The men are wearing some form of long underwear underneath, probably a Henley. The fabrics became much more practical. We've got wool, cotton, buckskin, no more embellishments. We're getting away from the embellishments, and the emphasis is on the cut and the tailoring. This paves the way for menswear, very austere, usually black, sometimes gray, sometimes brown, sometimes navy, but usually black tuxes. And it's been that way until now. The buckle shoes with those big brass buttons, the George Washington shoes, the Thomas Jefferson shoes, they're gone, no more, and they've given way to a riding boot. The general silhouette of the Regency male is to celebrate the athletic male form. We have the crop waistcoat, we have the linen shirts or muslin shirts or cotton shirts. We have the cutaway coat with the long tails giving emphasis to the high-rise, tight, very tight trousers. This is the blueprint to the modern day menswear cocktail attire. I love it. I love the silhouette. I love Mr. Darcy. Oh, I love Mr. Darcy so much. He looks so good. If possible, I would like a poster of him on my wall to look at when I'm in the cusp, when I'm in the mood. I'm a fan. What a great silhouette. What long legs it gives the man. Yes. For modern day fashion, the cottagecore aesthetic of the past 2 years borrows very heavily from Regency style. We have the empire waist. We have a square neckline. We have soft springtime, summer florals. Why does the Regency period keep on coming back? I believe that in times of stress, people like to take comfort in the past. They like to reach back through the lens of nostalgia for simpler times, for romantical times, to romanticize a time when people didn't have to worry about illness. But at the same time, I know that isn't true. People have always been worried. Or how else would you explain that Regency people are also nostalgic for a simpler time, which to them is the age of classical antiquity, the Greco-Roman Empire. Fancier times lead to simpler desires, leads to a back to basics desire. How else do you explain minimalism leads to maximalism, leads to minimalism? The minimalist revolution inspiration, Marie Kondo and her decluttering and the capsule wardrobe, the neutral color palette, all came on the heels of a very glitzy, bedazzled time, the early 2000s, Y2K. And now we're going back. We're going from minimalism to a sort of maximalism. There is a flip-flop between simple, fancy. Are we out of original ideas? Since fashion comes back every 20 years, and now with the advent of the illness and everybody spending tons of time online and the rise of the micro trend, are we out of original ideas? So let me know what you think in the comments below, and also drop down what your favorite fashion decade is, and if you've noticed that decades of the past have borrowed from decades of their past. Where else in fashion history have you noticed homages, copycats, inspiration, borrowing from past decades? So that, folks, is all I have for you right now. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you are not incredibly annoyed by me and my tangents and my asides and my crazy burst of energy, then consider subscribing. Thank you. Bye.